This conference will now be recorded.
Chadurmukha Samarambham Vakbhadacharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryandam Vande Guru Paramparam. Ragadirogan Satatanushaktan Sheshakaya Prasrutan Sheshan Aulsukya Moharadidan Jaghana Yo Purva Vaidyaya Namostu Tasmai. Namaskaram to all of Dravadravya Vidnyaniya Ikshuvargam. In our last session, we saw the properties of Gudam, Hridya Purana, Pathyascha, Nava, Shleshma Agni Sadakrit. That is what we saw in our last session. In our traditional practice, the Vaidyas used to make their own medicine in most of the situations, and the rest of the medicines were made by the patient himself. So those Vaidyas who used to make this own medicines, they used to keep this Gudam in wooden containers or stone containers of large size to make sure that it is used only when it is Purana. Puranam is becoming less Abhishyanti, and so it is regarded as Pathyam in general. And its taste also changes a little bit. Nava Gudam is not preferred for making medicines. Now, we already saw that we have 5 major Ikshu Vikaras, that is Bhanidam, Gudam, Malsyandika, Ghandam, and Sharkara. Sharkara is Sita, of which we saw Bhanidam and Gudam. Now the third one onwards, Vrishya, Kshatakshina Hita, Raktapittanilapaha, Malsyandika, Ghanda, Sitaha. Vrishyaha. There is a padham there called Kshina Kshatahitaha. Raktapitta Anilapaha. Raktapitta Anilapaha. Malsyandika Ghanda Sitaha. So these three are mentioned together. Malsyandika, Ghandam, and Sita. They represent the 3 stages of making this Ikshu Vikaras. First we saw all the 5. First we saw the our Bhanidam, then Gudam. Then it is further changed by making it more bleached, clean, and crystallized to form the Siddha. The other 2 are intermediaries in that total process of making the so-called white sugar. So Malsyandika and Ghandam comes prior to the stage of that crystal shaped Siddha. All these 3 are Vrishyaha, Kshina, Kshatahitaha, good for Kshina and Kshata, even Kshata Kshina otherwise. Raktapittanilabaha. They are Raktapittanila. And also there is a grading in as far as the quality or the property wise positioning is concerned. Kramena Gunavattamaha. So these three are supposed to be a different category because they are having some sort of a bleaching in between. It is done with a different procedure. It is done with traditionally it is done with some activated charcoal type of things, bone char, which is made out of the animal bones. And the other two are supposed to have a lot of impurities, that Bhanidam and Gudam. So that is why they are mentioned as a separate group here, Malsyandiga, Ghandasida, and the properties are also given together, only the gradation is given. Kramena Gunavattama. So Malsyandiga is Gunavad and still a bit superior as far as the Gunam is concerned is Ghandam, and the best out of it is Sida, the Sharkara. So that is the Ikshu Vikaras. Then we find another contextually relevant line here, that is about Yasha Sharkara. That is about Yasha Sharkara. Tadguna Tikta Madhura Kashaya Yasha Sharkara or Yasa Sharkara. Yasa Sharkara or Yasha Sharkara is the Sharkara made out of Yasham. Even among the commentators, ancient commentators or earlier commentators, there is no very strict or fine consensus about what this product is. But generally, it is accepted that Duralabharasena sa kriyate. Duralabharasena ikshurasavad kriyate. That is what is Yasha Sharkara. So, Tadguna. Tadguna means the guna of or gunas of Malsyandiga, Ghanda, Sida. Yasha Sharkara is also having Tadguna, same properties as the Malsyandiga, Ghanda, Siddhaha, but it is not that Madhuram, it is Tikta Madhuram. When you make this Yasha Sharkara, it will have a Tikta Rasa along with the Madhuram. And Kashayam also. Tikta Madhura Kashaya. We regarding the Ikshu, we saw the usage by Sushruta that Sumadhuram. But here it is not that Sumadhuram, it is Tikta Kashaya Anubaddha Madhuram, Yasha Sharkara. In Sangraham, we will find a few more sources from which you can make Sharkara. And Trudosha Shamanatvam is attributed to this Yasha Sharkara and other alternatives. We find in Sangraham Tadguna Tikta Madhura Kashaya Yasha Sharkara Trudoshakhnicha Sa Kasha Ishu Darbhachada Sambhavaha. So Chadam means leaf. So the Sharkara which is made from the leaves of Kasham, Ishu and Darbha. We find these plants in different context. Those Mutrala type of ganas, we find this. Trana Panjamulam type of drugs, we find. So those leaves are also used for extracting the Sharkara, they are also having this sort of Tikta Madhura Kashaya Rasa, Trudosha Shamanam. So I think I do not know the commercial viability of such a production, but I think they may be better alternatives in the present times for this cane sugar. They may be a better alternative. Kasheshu darbhachada sambhavaha. Then next line is something like a concluding line for this Ikshu Vargam. Generally, all Sharkara, all sugars are having some common property, and that is enlisted in this line. Daha trit chardi murcha pittaghnyaha sarva sharkaraha. Daha trit chardi murcha asrpittaghnyaha. Gnyaha, handi, they reduce, or they pacify. Daham, trit, chardi, murcha, and asrpitta. Daha, trit, chardi, murcha, asrpitta, gnyaha, sarva sharkara. All sharkaras are having or can be expected to have these properties. So we have a list of Sharkara and Ikshuvikara, other Ikshuvikaras. They, like Gudam, the others are also used very liberally in the modern time life everywhere. And I think the white crystalline sugar may be the most commonly used Ikshuvikaram these days. There are many allegations against this white sugar. It is also known as white poison. Gandhiji was opposing the liberal use of white sugar, refined sugar. Maybe the way in which it is refined these days is quite different from how they used to bleach or refine them in olden times. Now I think these sugars are looked into from a different perspective, like their glycemic index and everything. So that way I think the present day sugar is very high in its glycemic index, and the drinks, soft drinks, beverages and everything of that sort, which contains lots of sugar along with salt, is posing actually a new group of health issues these days, these Coke, Pepsi type of drinks. The other day I happened to come across a patient who developed bilateral avascular necrosis of the head of femurs, and in multiple centers he was investigated, inspected, and the diagnosis was confirmed. And interestingly, that person, who is maybe in the late 40s, used to have plenty of this carbonated beverages, Pepsi type of things, during his 30s, and now he has health issues of the sort where this asthikshayam is manifesting in different forms. So the Sita or Sharkara, what we find as explained in the Samhitas and what we consume these days as the white sugar, I think that needs a lot of explorations, studies, whether they are the same, whether we can expect the sort of outcomes which is explained in the Sharkara or Sita in our classics, if we use the white sugar for the same purposes. And more and more health issues are getting published these days by the consumption of or with the consumption of this white sugar. So all these things are to be seriously considered by the Vaidyas. Then concluding, Sharkare Ikshuvikaranam Bhanidam cha Varavare. Ikshuvikaranam Sharkara Bhanidam cha Varavare. Sharkara, the Sita, is considered as the Varam, the best. And Bhanidam is considered as the Avaram, the least preferred. The first one is the most preferred, and the Bhanidam is the least preferred. Actually, these are some sort of a misnomers. Because when we find the word that Varam, generally it is understood as Shreshtham, but that never means that it is Pathyam. It is some sort of a grading. Among the Ikshuvikaras, Bhanidam is the least preferred one, and Sharkara is the most preferred one. So the preference is in terms of a standard list of properties which we expect from Ikshuvikaras. That doesn't mean that it is the Pathyam, Pathyataram, Pathyatamam, that sort of issues are not there. So we should not mistake. Everywhere when we find this Vara, Avaram or Shreshtham, all these things, we have to decide as a sweetening agent which one would you prefer in a given context. This Ikshuvikaram is the best option to narrate this this point, because this Gudam is having a peculiar property to work as maybe a binder or whatever it is. So even though in this list of this Varavaratvam, Gudam comes only as the second one from the bottom, but still for all the Avaleha Kalpanas we go for Gudam. We don't think that okay, Sita is the best, so we will make all the Avalehas with the Sita. So there the Pathyataratvam or Pathyatamatvam is not the matter of concern. So we go for Gudam. So this sort of an understanding should be there wherever we find this Varavaratvam or Agriyam, all these things. It is just a contextual statement in terms of certain preferences which we set as the x-axis. This is supposed to be the most preferred one. That's all. Never, even in the Madhya Vargam, we may find that this is the Shreshtatamam. That never means that it is a Pathyam. It is Abathyam, no doubt at all. But among the group of the Madhya or Madhya Sandhana Vikaras or Visheshas, this X is supposed to be the most preferred one. So if at all you want to get the maximum out of a Madhya when compared with the standard properties explained for Madhya, you go for this, that's all. Fine. So now we find Madhu. Madhu actually is not one among the Ikshuvikara, as you all know, but still it finds a place, a position in this Ikshuvikara, because that also gives Sharkara. That is also a source of Sharkara. So it is positioned along with the Ikshuvikaras. Again, Madhu is a product which is used very liberally in our pharmacies, day-to-day practice as well. Chakshushyam chedi tritsleshma vishahidhuma srapitanud meha kushta krimi chardi swasakasa adisarajid vranashodhana sandhana ropanam vadalam madhu ruksham kashaya madhuram tattulya madhu sharkara. Chakshushyam chedi tritsleshma vishahidhuma srapitanud. Trit/ma visha hidma asrapitta nut. Nut, it reduces, works against, pacifies, cures. Trit/ma visha hidma asrapitta nut. So Shleshma finds a very prominent place in this list when we take Tridoshas. Sharirajanam doshanam kramena paramaushadham vastir virego vamanam tadha tailam kridam madhu. We find it there as the paramaushadham for Shleshma. We find Madhu. So that is reflecting in this list also. Third, Shleshma visha hidma asrapitanud. Then meha kushta krimi chardi swasa kasa adisarajit. Meha prameha kushtam krimi chardi swasa kasa adisarajit. It is clear. Vranashodhana sandhana ropanam. As far as vranas are concerned, shodhanam, sandhanam, ropanam. So three very crucial karma. Very crucial as far as vrana chikitsa is concerned. These three needs, actually they come across in vrana chikitsa very often or almost always. Either you have to go for vrana sandhanam, sometimes for vrana shodhanam, and always for vrana ropanam. So Madhu is having the, so we very often find Madhu as an essential recipe or preparation in a vrana or shalya clinic always. And Vadalam is Vadavarthagam. The next line shows the cause as well. Ruksham kashaya madhuram. So the rukshada is very prominent. And it has got a kashaya madhura rasa. You will find Madhu in both the kashaya vargam and madhura vargam. So it is chakshushyam, very good for chakshus because of its kaphaharatvam. Chakshus tejomayam tasya visheshad shleshmado bhayam. not just because of the kabhaharatvam. Honey, madhu has got a chakshushya prabhavam as well. It is chedi, kabhachedi, medachedi. Tritsleshma vishahitmasrapittanutviso, meha kushtakrimi, chardi, swasakasa, adisaradit. Like gudam, this madhu is also used very commonly in the many preparations, either as a major ingredient, sometimes as a medium for mixing churnam, gudiga, sometimes as a prakshepam in kashayam. Then in many of the kalpanas prepared for vasti, vamanam, everywhere we find the use of madhu. I do not know. And the last line is Tatulya Madhu Sharkara, Madhu Sharkara. When this madhu is saturated with the content of sugar in it, slowly that start crystallizing, precipitating as Sharkara in it, which can be seen down in the bottom of the container. Generally, we tend to believe that when we find this madhu shakkara in the bottom of the bottles or containers, we tend to believe that this is not pure honey. It's made out of sugar. So it is just something like a prepared honey or something like that. But it need not be so. It can be so, but it need not be so. This madhu shakkara is a normal or natural precipitate from the madhu where the sugar content in it is high, goes beyond the saturation levels. Sometimes it happens, especially on prolonged over a prolonged time, when the water content is going further down, then this can happen very easily. In the recent times, I think maybe 1 month back or so, I do not know how many of you have gone through that report, that Center for Science and Environment, New Delhi, came up with a actually quite frightening study report that almost all out of 13 or 14 samples studied, only 1 or 2, or even more than, I think 20 plus samples tried or studied, investigated the market samples of honeys. Only 2 passed the test regarding the presence of added sugars, especially this Chinese sugar or something like that, Chinese sugar syrup or something like that, which was imported in some other name as a commercial additive or something like that. And the presence of that added sugar was seen in almost all samples of the honey available in the Indian market. So if we are consuming that sort of a sugar, you cannot expect that kashaya madhuram. It is pure madhuram. You can feel that the honey which you get these days by almost all sources, except if you get it right from the maybe the collectors in the forest. Even those fellows, those people who used to collect the honey right from the forest, have started manipulating. Recently, there was an incident in Kerala where huge quantities of Fevicol was seen purchased by some tribal people, and somebody chased them and looked into what these people are going to do with this huge bulk of Fevicol. They were making some sort of honey out of this Fevicol, adding with some sugar, some jaggery or something like that, and that was sold for high price as naming it as forest honey. So a lot of manipulations are going on, lot of things are happening in food industry, especially in this honey. Honey is supposed to be the one of the most or the highest quantity of this type of product, this sweetening agent, all over the market, all over the world. And lot of adulterations are happening, and we, without knowing any of these sort of manipulations, we purchase this honey, use it, advise others to use it. Honey is being used for many purposes, for reducing weight, for enhancing the taste, as some sort of a syrup, many things, jam, and so on. And still we expect that we can get all the properties like this meha haratvam, kushta haratvam, and adhisara haratvam, and this will cause the vranashodhana sandhana ropanam, all these things. It need not happen, it will not happen. What we get as honey is an entirely different product. Even from those people who grow this honey in farms, this is a culture, apiculture or something like that, even those bees are fed with this sugar syrup, and to prevent some viral infections, they are also treated with some antivirus, sometimes some antibiotics like that. So high quantity of sugar and antibiotics are seen in an earlier study by the same agency, Center for Science and Environment, in almost all samples of honey available in our market. So that is about the honey. Then Ushnam Ushnartam Ushneja Yuktam Cha Ushnaihi Nihandi Tad Madhu Ushnam Nihandi Ushnartam Nihandi Ushne Yuktam Nihandi Ushnaihi Saha Yuktam Nihandi. Certain conditions. Ushnam Madhu Nihandi. It can be fatal to use hot honey, Ushnam. So you are not supposed to use honey heated. That never means that the honey should never be heated. Honey can be heated, and it is heated to reduce its water content. So it can be heated, but you should not consume it hot. Ushnartam. Ushnartam. Ushnaihi adabadibhihi pididam naram. So when somebody is maybe tired or exposed to bright sun, or due to some other, maybe working near the ovens in the kitchen, then immediately he is not supposed to consume honey. Ushne, Ushna deshe, Ushna kale, you are not supposed to consume honey. Then Ushnaihi saha ubayuktam Sparsoshnaihi, something which is hot, don't add honey and consume it. Sometimes we find kids are say they are very much attracted with the use of honey in that way, putting honey as a jam between this bread pieces, hot bread pieces, then using honey as chutney for eating dosha, like that, chapati. So that is not advisable. But still our kids are using, our adults are using in almost all of these ways. and they are staying safe. It's not by the merit of God, but they are not using honey. Most often it is just sugar syrups of various makings. That is why it is not causing any harm. In the same way, if you use honey available today, you cannot treat any pramehi, even though madhu is advised as good in prameha. None of the honey which is available in the market can be used by pramehi because it is not madhu again. In Sangraha, at this point, we find a couple of explanations for this savisha swabhavam. Ushnam ushnartam ushneja yuktam cha ushnayirnihanti tad vishanvayattvena vishapushpebhyopi yado madhu kurvade te swayam yaccha savisha bhramaramayah. These bees, they themselves are having a little bit of toxic effect. Everybody knows it. Then they may be collecting this honey from many flowers, of which some flowers may be having some toxic effect. So in total, there is a presence of visha in madhu, and that presence of visha get exaggerated, enhanced when you heat it or use in the way which we were discussing so far. So that is why it is advised to avoid such uses of honey. But prachardane niruhecha madhu ushnam na nivaryate. Prachardane niruhecha madhu ushnam na nivaryate. Alabdhapagam ashveva tayoho yasman nivartade. Alabdhapagam ashveva tayor yasman nivartade. Madhu is advised to be used warm during prachardana, vamana, and while preparing vasti dravya. And the explanation given is, in both these situations, in vasti as well as prachardanam, alabdha pagam, without undergoing pagam, jadharagni pagam, tayoho, in prachardanam and vasti, yasmad nivartade. Madhu is coming out in the chardidravam or in the vasti. It comes out. That is why it is safe. But I think this needs a reconsideration. If there is savishata in the ushnikrita madhu, that vishata will have its own vyavayi vikashi properties. Vyavayi will not wait for the jadharagni pagam to act. Vyavayi deham akhilam vyapya pagaya kalpade. So it does not require the support of Agni to spread all over the dhadus or srotasas. So if it is so, it can happen in both these situations, especially in vasti, which is even faster to cause the spread of this sort of savishata. If you put maybe a visham in the vasti margam, the result or the impact will be so fast. If you put an aushadham in the vasti margam, the result is very fast. So this alabdha pagatvam, as far as a visha is concerned, personally I do not feel it as quite logical, but I do not know why they have put it like this. Fine. Then another statement what we find in Sangraham is Guru Ruksha Kashayatvad Shaityacha Alpam Hidam Madhu. Madhu should always be used in moderation, very low quantity. Alpam Hidam Madhu. Madhu Alpam Hidam. Why? Guru Ruksha Kashayatvad Shaityad Cha. Guru Ruksha Kashayatvad. Guru Ruksham Kashayam Shaityam. Sometimes they look as contradicting properties. Guru, Ruksha, Kashaya and Shaityam. So because of this contradictory factors, next line, Nahi kashtadamam kinjid tad ajirnadayado naram. If one person comes across with a ajirnam of madhu ajirnam, nahi kashtadamam kinjid. There is no further worse situation than madhu ajirnam imaginable as far as the treatment is concerned. Nahi kashta samam kinjid tad ajirnad yado naram. Upakrama virodhitvad. Upakrama virodhitva. Upakrama virodhitva. Generally, this any ajirnam requires ushnopachara. And visham, this ajirnajanya, madhujanya visham needs Sida Viryam for its prasadanam. So here it cannot be done. Neither Ushnam nor Sidam can be done. And it is having Savisha property, so it can turn fatal. Upakrama virodhitvad sadyo hanyad yatha visham. That is what we find in Ashtanga Sangraha. Upakrama virodhitvad sadyo hanyad yatha visham. Then another observation, Nana Dravyatmagatvacha Yogavahi Param Madhu. Nana Dravyatmagatvacha Yogavahi Param Madhu. So, as it accommodates Nana Dravya, this Madhu is processed by the bee, collecting the honey from various sources. So it is a collection of a huge variety of materials or sources and then getting it processed inside to make this honey. Nana Dravyatmagatva, Yogavahi. So it has got a peculiar property of Yogavahita. Yogavahidaya Dravyam Samyuktasya Prayojanam Uddibayed. Yogavahi Dravya, when it is added with a new Dravya, Samyuktam, Samyuktasya Prayojanam Uddibayed, it will enhance, exaggerate the properties of that particular stuff with which this Yogavahi is added. So if Madhu is added with something, the property of that something will be exaggerated. And Tadha Swiyam Aviruddham Karotyapi. Swiyam Prayojanam. It will retain its own properties as well. So it will retain its own property and it will enhance the properties of that one with which it had its samyoga. Yogavahidaya dravyam samyuktasya prayojanam uddivayed tadha sviyam aviruddham karotyapi. So that is called Yogavahi. And because of this Yogavahita, what is advantage? Vrishyayogair ado yuktam vrishadam anuvartate. If you add madhu with vrishyayogam, then this madhu itself will add on to the vrishada of that particular combination. Vrishyayogair ado yuktam vrishadam anuvartate. Vrishadam anuvartate. Then types: Brahmaram Pautigam Kshaudram Makshigam cha Yathottaram Varam. Giving 4 types. Again, we find that some sort of a grading in terms of its quality. First grade, second grade, third grade, and fourth grade, like that. Brahmaram Pautigam Kshaudram Makshigam cha Yathottaram Varam. So the most preferred type is Makshigam, then Kshaudram, then Pautigam, then Brahmaram. Jirnanja. Jirnam madhu is also supposed to be Varam. Like Gudam, Jirnam madhu is also considered as Varam. Teshu andye dve eva hyubayojayed. Of these 4, andye dve eva ubayojayed. Even though I have given the names of 4 types of honeys, you may go for the last 2. That means Kshaudram and Makshigam. The other 2, they are there, no problem, but don't use them. Teshu andye dve eva hyubayojayed. You will find the explanations or descriptions of these types of 4 honeys, sometimes more than that in some Nikhandu Granthas, some 8 types or something like that. But these 4 are supposed to be the basic. And regarding the properties, you will find the descriptions about these 4 types. Regarding the color, I think color is supposed to be one classical feature of identifying them. So the manipulators also will be working with in that line. Always the R&D department of the thieves will be better than the R&D departments of the police. So the manipulators, they work better always. The colors are like this. Varam syad Brahmaram Shuklam. So Brahmaram is Shukla Varna. Kritavarnam tu Pautigam. Kshaudram tu Kabilam Proktam. So Kshaudram is Kabila Varnam. Tailabham Makshigam Smridam. Makshigam is Tailabham. So this Kabila Varna Kshaudram and Taila Varna Makshigam, these 2 are supposed to be used for our purposes. Brahmaram Pautigam Kshaudram Makshigam ja Yathottaram Varam Jirnanja Teshu andye dve eva hyubayojayed. So that is all about Madhu. Now we switch over to Taila Vargam. We will just read the first slokam today, because I think we will not be able to complete the Taila Vargam today. I was expecting that we will finish Taila Vargam also. Let us see. Generally, I think that need to be read aloud and explained on a basic plane. So if we can, we will finish it. Tailam swayonivad tatra mukhyam tikshnam vyavaicha tvagdoshakrid achakshushyam sukshmoshnam kabhakrun nacha nacha kabhakrut krishanam brahmanayalam sthulanam karshanayacha baddhavitkam krimikhnam cha samskarad sarvarogajit. or Sarvadoshajit. There is a Padha. Tailam Swayonivat Tatra Mukhyam Tikshnam Vyavaicha Tvagdoshakrit Achakshushyam Sukshmoshnam Kabhagrannacha Krishanam Brahmanayalam Sthulanam Karishanayacha Baddhavitkam Krimikhnam cha Samskarad Sarvarogajit or Sarvadoshajit. This is about the Tailam. First statement is something like a very general one. Tailam, all Tailas, Swayonivat, are according to the source. So this Tailam, they are extracted from the Taila Bhalam. So the source decides the quality of the Tailam. This is a general statement. Tatra Mukhyam, the Mukhyam, the most important one among all Tailas. Tailam, the word itself represents or shows the dominance of Tila Tailam. When the source is Tilam, then that product is known as Tailam. Tilam, Tajanyam, Tailam. So that Mukhyam, that means the Tila Tailam is supposed to be the Mukhyam. It is having the property Tikshnam, Vyavayi, Vyavayi Deham, Akhilam Prapya Pagaya Kalpade. Tvagdosha Krit, it causes Tvagdosha. Achakshushyam, it is not good for Chakshus. This is always a contradictory statement because in most of the places it is believed to be Tvachyam, Varnyam, and it is good for the Chakshus. But here it is very categorically mentioned that or stated that it is Tvagdoshakrit and Achakshushyam, and the commentators have put all their efforts to clarify these points. We can find it. Sukshmam, Ushnam, and Nacha Kabhakrit. Why all these explanations? Because this Swayoni, here the Swayoni is the Tilam. Snigdhoshna Tikta Kaduga Kashaya Madhurastilaha Tvachyaha Kesyaha Guruhu Varnyaha. So we find many properties which are contradictory. Tilam is Tvachyam and Varnyam. Tilatailam is Tvagdoshakrit. Then Kesyam Guru Sparshashido Anilapaha Alpamutraha Kadupage Medhagni Kabhapitta Krit. So obviously the product also, the source is Kabhapitta Krit. So the product also should be Kabhapitta Krit. But the author wants to make some sort of a very strong suggestion that this is not that Kabhakrit. In the Agriyam, in Sangraham, we find that Vadashleshma Haranam Agriyam Tailam. So Tilam is Kabhakrit. Tailam he wants to disagree. So that is why it is specifically mentioned that Nacha Kabhakrit. But that is always a contradictory statement. Sometimes we tend to say that it is Kabhaharam, but in our practice, it is not working like that. It is not Kabhaharam. Then Vadaslesh Maharanam Agriyam. Then the commentators find their pass, making it a statement that this is only applicable in Samsarga. It doesn't mean that it is Slesh Maharam. So there are problems. Maybe the reason could be the Desham and Kalam in which this source is harvested. The tilam what is grown, maybe in a particular area, may be different from the tilam which is grown in a different area. So all these things could be influencing the properties of all aushadhis, and this sort of contradictions can be seen all throughout in the case of many dravyas. So you have to be atascha prakritam bhuttva deshakalantarani cha granthakartur abhiprayan upayamscha arthamadishet. Interestingly, that is given in the context of explaining these dravyas in Charaka Samhita. Fine. Then Krishanam Brahmanaya alam. Krishanam Brahmanaya alam. And it is explained because why, how this is becoming the good for or sufficient. Alam. It is not good, it is alam, sufficient for making Brahmana in Krisha because of its capacity of this Sukshmam and Tikshnam. It brings about Srodha Shuddhi. So that is how it is going to be sufficient for Krisha in the act of Brahmana, and it is sufficient for the Sthula in the act of Karshana, because the same reason that by working on the Srodhasas, it brings about Dhatu Samya. That is how it is going to work in Sthula. So Krishanam Brahmanayalam Sthulanam Karshanaya cha. Baddha Vitkam. It is Baddha Vitkam. So it causes some sort of a obstruction as far as the bowel movements are concerned. Krimighnam cha. It has got Krimighna property. Samskarad Sarvadoshajit or Sarvarogajit. Sahasravidyam vidhibhisrudam karma sahasrakrit we find in Kridam. Here it is just a statement, samskarad sarvadoshajit or sarvarogajit. This baddha vitkada is specifically given for Tailam, whereas alpamutrada is given specifically for Tilam. So you have to consider all these things, and there is a general statement that any of the Tila vikaras are not supposed to be consumed after sunset. That is a general rule for all kapha pitta vardhaka dravyas. So when we take it as for granted, we presume or we agree with the statement that Thailam is also a Tila Vikaram which is not to be consumed after the sunset because of its kapha pitta karatvam. So it is a contradiction to the kapha krunna cha. Anyway, we have to understand all these things based on the context and the stuff which you really get firsthand. So come out of the text, come out of the lines in the pages and see what you really get and what you really use in the ground zero. Accordingly, you make conclusions regarding what the Tilam is having as its properties. The Tilam which you really use, not the Tilam which you find explained in the text. So with that, we will stop today. We will continue with the rest of the Taila Vargam and the remaining portions. Hopefully we will finish in maybe 1 or maximum 2 sessions. So Vaidya, shall we conclude?
Yes, sir, definitely. If there are no queries or if somebody wants to add, within the next few minutes they can add, or we can conclude, sir.
Okay, then let's conclude. Wish you all a great weekend. See you in our next session.